track of time and space inside the actual tunnels. And the feeling in the mines was of quietude and camaraderie. I think that sounds strange, but seriously, it was very, very peaceful in there. Oddly enough, it was not the least bit frightening. I felt only a calmness. Gentle echoes of voices belonging to those ahead of us could be heard throughout the tunnel walls. The drip, drip, drip of water from earlier rainstorms and underground springs echoed around us. Deb sensed brotherhood amongst the ghosts, who seemed to relive each day as if just arriving for their shifts. Laurel thought about the men who worked so hard to dig those tunnels out. She psychically understood many ghosts did not want to leave. They worked so hard for so long that the mine actually became a part of them, heart and soul. We can talk about the piano shop at the end, yes, if you'd like. While in the skip car chamber and shaft station of the mines, the site of the last recorded death, the two men killed went down on a newly repaired cable that broke again with them on it, and they fell 1,850 feet. Can you imagine the terror they must have felt as they were falling down? It was clear that many souls were present. At one point, a smoky ectoplasm kind of fog materialized, and this smoke dissipated and reappeared on command each time we requested it to do so. Marianne implored it to show us the smoke once more, and it appeared. At one point, we were actually standing on the grates way above the tunnels below, and we actually heard dynamite going off in the mines below, and it's been an inactive mine for years, since the 80s, which was really, really cool. It was clear that the ladies worked wonderfully together. It was also clear that Art Peterson of Destination Purgatory was in sync with Laurel Devine. It was as if they were both hearing the same spirit speak to them in their minds, and it got to the point where they were finishing each other's sentences. So here is the piece from the book where I described that incident. The spirit John on the 4th level came in loud and clear to both Art and Laurel. They kept receiving the same panicked message. John showed them with visions of a disastrous tunnel collapse. He wanted them to know he tried to save his brothers, but lost his life. He conveyed a feeling of guilt, remorse, and anguish. He blamed himself for not being able to prevent or stop it from happening. John empathically relayed to Laurel a large piece of wood cracked his skull. Laurel felt the blood drip down the side of her face and neck and chest, as it had on John as he died. Art and Laurel communally described in exact detail the horror John experienced. The equipment went haywire. Art kept hearing, "Raise the Tim." We realized this must have meant to raise the timber. John died before he could even finish his sentence. It all happened so fast. A rush of people, panic, a collapse, darkness. Had they been able to raise the timber in time, it would have held up one arch, delaying the collapse. Everyone from the team attempted to usher John into the light at the end, but he didn't want to leave the others behind. He felt they needed him. We told him he could bring all of the men with him into the light, where they would find all their loved ones waiting for them in a place too beautiful to comprehend. Unfortunately, he chose to stay because some, not all, wanted to leave, and he didn't want to leave anyone behind. The mines was the start of a series of extraordinary experiences I would have with the others, and it continues today. When investigating Lafayette Pond, we were curious to see if we could pick up spirits of those who drowned in the pond. Except Marianne and Laurel both kept picking up a dark figure, shadow, walking on the far side of the lake by a connecting ravine, and we were drawn to a particular location not in the pond, which was confusing to us. After several minutes of trying to connect, Laurel had gotten a terrible pain in her head and walked away. Her impression was that someone had fell and cracked their head and drowned. Marianne, too, saw someone hit their head on a rock and drown. This spring-fed pond was created around 1980 on land that housed the township garage, very likely had claimed some lives over the years. When interviewing lifelong Lafayette resident Fred Decker, I asked him if he knew about any drownings. And he told me not of any in the pond, but that there was this guy named Floyd Jones, who was an alcoholic employed at the feed store and who lived in the house across the way around the corner. The Lafayette House, the original one that is, was on the main thoroughfare of Route 15 at the time. And a footbridge brought you over from one side to the other. So Floyd would have gone over the footbridge and would go from his house to the other side to go to the Lafayette House each night to get drunk. And one wintry night, drunk after spending hours at the Lafayette House, he slipped on the ice crossing the bridge. He hit his head on the rocks below and he drowned. And his body was found the next day in the precise location that Marianne and Laurel had pointed out, which I thought was very, very interesting, that that story came full circle, and then we were able to find out who it was that we saw that night. Lafayette is certainly a happy haunting, that's for sure. And I love when stories come full circle like that. We investigated the brick and mortar marketplace twice. And on our second visit there, we had a full-on conversation with a spirit named Harmon Hockenberry, who was a former Lafayette resident. We didn't know it at the time, but we just heard his name. And now with the power of modern technology, we had our phones there, and Brittany started Googling, and there, lo and behold, she finds Harmon Hockenberry. He lived in Lafayette, and here we are talking to his ghost. And he said that he was buried in the local cemetery, which would be the Lafayette Cemetery, and he was covered with grass. It sounded like an odd thing for us to receive, but not everything makes sense all of the time, right at the time that you receive the information. So we figured it would come together sooner or later, right? We did an investigation then at the shops of Lafayette, specifically the Diva Dog Boutique and Barkery. While there, we connected with the spirits of a young couple named Daniel and Sarah Hopper. Team member Andrew Knapp Googled their names, and he came up with the grave of Sarah Hopper and one of the Daniel Hopper who would have been their son, but we couldn't find the elder Daniel. We put it on the back burner as something to research later on. In June of 2020, Brittany Iwanski and I go cemetery hopping, and we decide to go to the Lafayette Cemetery to see if we can locate the grave of Harmon Hockenberry, which was the spirit from the brick and mortar marketplace. He indicated he was buried in the Lafayette Cemetery, so we were going to go there looking for him. At first glance, the Lafayette Cemetery appears to go on forever, but when you actually trudge up the hill and get a full view, it's actually quite small. And as we were walking, Brittany noticed this nice-sized feather lying on the grass, which is quite often a spirit trying to get one's attention. So we decided, let's follow the feathers, so to speak. Next thing we know, Brittany finds yet another feather. We reached a set of stones and we stopped. And before we even had a chance to look at the name on the first stone, Brittany says, "Oh my gosh, look, there's another feather." Sure enough, there it was at our feet. I looked up at the stone, and lo and behold, there on the gravestone is the name of Daniel Hopper. Now, we were there looking for Harmon Hockenberry, right? Daniel Hopper was the man from the couple from the Diva Dog Boutique. He was the elder Daniel Hopper from that investigation that we didn't know where his grave was. The spirits of Daniel and Sarah had indicated to us that they were in the Lafayette Cemetery, but that night, if you recall me mentioning, we were only able to find Sarah and Daniel, whom appeared to be the son. So it was thrilling to find Daniel, and I'm certain it was him that was showing us he was there, and right beside him was his wife, and right beside them was their son, Daniel. The mystery of where Daniel Sr. was now solved, and it came full circle for us. And we went there in search of Harmon Hockenberry, but solved another mystery instead. We were about to give up the Harmon hunt, and we noticed that many of the stones were illegible, and the chances of finding him were very limited. We had already checked out most of the stones in the cemetery to no avail, and we were getting ready to leave when we decided to check out a cluster of headstones at the far end of the cemetery before leaving. The first stone we came upon was Mary Hockenberry. We never did find Harmon, but I'm certain that he led us to Mary in order to indicate that he indeed was somewhere in the cemetery, and most likely in one of those illegible graves or one whose tombstone had disappeared long ago. After all, he did leave us with a bit of a cryptic message about how he was buried in the grass. So stories that come full circle. I so love it when they do that, don't you? So those are just some examples of hauntings that we've had, that we've gone on recently, not, in the last year or so. Somebody had asked me about the piano shop. That was in Pennsylvania, and it just so happened that one of the young boys who is a part of our group, the Lady Ghostbuster team, is extremely sensitive. His name is John Matthews, and he works at this piano shop because he plays piano and he collects pianos. And because he loves them so much, he actually works in a place where he could fix them and restore them. But he says the place is very haunted, and he started telling me stories about the store owner, his boss, who actually lives in the facility, and what they had experienced. And he asked if I would bring the team in, and we spent the night there, which was crazy because, you know, you really can't get to sleep because aside from being all the adrenaline flowing and you being nervous, things do happen that you can't explain and you want to get it on camera. And we did get one of the garage doors that was broken, those huge warehouse garage doors. It was broken and didn't even work. At one point, it lifted itself up and banged itself down, and there was nobody there. So we got that on camera. It's actually on my website for you guys to see if you if you want to go and see. But I saw somebody had asked to talk about the piano shop. Did you have a specific question you wanted to ask about the piano shop? Whoever it was.
Yeah, yes, I'm here. Do you know the name of the piano shop or where it's located? I'm just wondering if I've been there because I'm in the piano business as well. I'm just wondering if it's a place that I've been to.
You know what? If you do you know one in Pennsylvania? I'm trying to think of where it was in Pennsylvania. I haven't written that chapter yet. I just have my notes, but I don't have it on me. If you say it, I could probably remember it. It's
I can't remember I live in New Jersey, and I can't remember every piano shop in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. There are numerous. Do you remember the town?
If you name some towns in Pennsylvania over that way. It's about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Was it in Wilkes-Barre or
No, it wasn't. It wasn't in
out there by the Allentown area, or in the Poconos, or closer to Philadelphia.
No, I think it was closer to Allentown. When you're going, there's a place. Oh gosh, there's a game park, like an amusement park, that is not too far away from.
20 years ago, I don't remember. Maybe even 30 years ago, I wouldn't remember it better than you.
I don't know if it might help you. It was a former. Before it was a piano shop, it was a kitchen cabinet tile warehouse. The guy who owned it had set up different kitchens, and he was selling the cabinetry. You know, like you would go in and order tile and stuff. That's what it was before. So when the guy who bought it, he actually had all of this kitchen stuff in there that he had to get rid of to put the pianos in. But the unique thing about that piano shop was, as I told you, John Matthews, a young man who was very sensitive, he plays piano and fairly well. He's not like a master at it, and he's the first one to say, I make mistakes and I stumble over my fingers, and you know, I'm not perfect. But he channels the pianos. So he'll literally sit down at an old piano, and it's almost like something takes him over, and he starts to play the piano and music he's never played before, without any errors whatsoever, like flawlessly. And he's the first one to say, I don't know that song. I've never heard of it before in my life. And when we're standing there and we're watching him, you can see his face literally change while he's playing the piano. And then he'll get up and he'll go to another piano and do the same thing in an entirely different musical genre. So that was kind of crazy to see as well.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions about the piano shop? You know what? If you go to my website, the lady that I was just speaking to, and you email me, I can get you the name of the piano shop, because I know it's going to probably bother you that you can't think of it, and I can't think of it. I know it wasn't really close. We had to travel about an hour. We had to go over the bridge by Phillipsburg and go that way. And
can you type your email address in the chat box?
Sorry?
I don't know your email. I don't have your email address. Can you type it into the chat box?
Sure. Let me get to the chat. I'll put in my website there. You can see the picture.
Or your website. Yeah, that'll work too. I don't have that either.
Yeah. Let me see how I can get into this chat. There's the chat box. Okay.
I did put your, yeah, you just put it too. I did put your web address in the chat box too for everybody.
All right, so I don't need your email. Okay, I got them both
There
now.
you
Thank
go.
you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And yes, Lady Ghostbusters is open to new members. I'm the type of person that feels like the more the merrier.
Okay.
Obviously, if we're going to a small facility, you can only have a certain number of people, but most of the time we go to big places, and then I'll have people on separate floors because I'm always building the stories. It started out as Sussex County Hauntings, as some of you probably have already heard, and now I've got stories about Warren County and Orange County and Morris County and Passaic County, and they're all continually building up. Like the Pennsylvania piano shop is going to be a story that hasn't been in print yet because I haven't gotten to that edition yet, but I'm doing stories and investigations all the time.
How,
And
I'm sorry, would I contact you?
me, yep, at the email or the blog, and we could talk about it. I
Okay,
have
great.
I have a Facebook page too, or
Okay.
Author Eleanor. You can get me there, and if you follow me on Facebook, I can get you to the Ghostly page, and then we can take it there too.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I have a private Ghostbuster page that the members are on, and every time I have an investigation coming up, I'll usually post the investigation date and the time, and whoever wants to come will put it in the comment line that they're coming, and then I usually send a reminder a couple of days before the event because sometimes life gets in the way and people forget, and then we end up going on that investigation. Like last weekend, we were in Phillipsburg because right now I'm working on Warren County hauntings, right? So there was a woman that I had interviewed last year and reconnected with her because I was working on the chapter, and I said to her, do you want us to come and do an investigation in the building? And she was like, yeah, I would love that. So we had scheduled it for November 22nd, and she and her husband, they were cleaning out the house because the tenant who was in there before left it in a shambles, and now they needed to renovate to fix it up for new tenants. And so probably like a week and a half ago, I got a call from her and say, oh, I have tenants coming in and they're moving in this last Sunday, which I think was the 12th or the 11th. She said, if you want to come for an investigation, you're going to have to do before then. So I was like, oh, now I had to scramble to look on the calendar because I really got a full calendar of things going on the next couple of months. So we squeezed it in last Friday, and there was only 4 of us there, but it was crazy what happened because I already had the story from her about what she had experienced when she lived in the home. But I don't tell any of the Lady Ghostbusters team what I know because I want to see what they come up with on their own. So they don't know any information about the building that we're going into. Most of the time, it's a private residence. I mean, obviously, if we're going to like the gingerbread house, for example, they're going to know a lot about the gingerbread house, but they may not know anything about the hauntings in the building, and they may not know about the stories that I've heard from people that I've talked to. So, and if they're good sensitives, they don't want to know anything anyway because they don't want their vision to be tarnished. You know what I'm saying?
Got
So
you.
we go in and into this house, and as soon as we walk in the door, we get hit like with this this wall of tension is the only thing the way I can describe it. And I'm not nearly as gifted as some of these people that I've interviewed. I've said that before. I mean, I call it a foofy feeling. Like I get this foofy feeling that I know there's something going on. And a lot of the time it puts me off balance. Like I'll be like, ooh, trying to stand easy on my feet. But the others will actually see and hear and receive messages differently. And but we all got hit as soon as we walked in the door. And we walked up the stairs to the top of the stairs, and the woman had previously told me that when she was in the bathroom, she would always see this man standing in the hallway. Obviously, nobody else knew that but me and the homeowner. And we go up there, and right away, Dana picks up that there's this guy here, and John almost gets knocked down the stairs, which the owner had experienced before too. She had been shoved down the stairs, but she had been shoved down the basement stairs, not these main stairs. And one of the bedrooms had a very like foreboding about it. It had heartbreak and sadness. And a lot of times you hear that like negative spirits will they will be able to somehow like integrate themselves in people's lives and take over their emotions. And the prior tenant that had lived in the home, her teenage son had tried to commit suicide. And he had resided in that bedroom where we felt that horrible heartbreak. And he tried to take his life by slitting his wrists in the bathroom, which the bathroom wasn't a good feeling place either. So now the medium that was John and this medium, this was the first time they had actually ever met each other. And they worked really well with each other. They kind of like I was explaining to you before, how Laurel and Art could finish each other's sentences. It was the same kind of like with John. He's very new at this. He's kind of a novice at building his gift, and Dana has had years and years of experience. So to have them work together so well was an incredible thing to see. We go downstairs in the basement, and John has taken all sorts of pictures because he sees a lot of things in the pictures, and he gets them really good pictures. And Dana steps into the middle of the basement, and she starts to get this vision of this man beating up somebody downstairs in the basement. And when we were on the stairwell upstairs, she had seen the same man pushing a female down the stairs. And then, like I said, John was pushed. So it kind of all came together. The owner had told me she had been pushed, and the medium saw this vision of this woman being pushed, and John was actually pushed. So we knew that this entity did not like us, did not want us there. And so I didn't want to scare the homeowner. And I said to her, I said, I don't mean to scare you, but I know that you have a young couple moving into this house with a child. And I said, you lived in this home, and your own grandson said to you that he couldn't go downstairs because the man said he was going to beat him. I would just be a little nervous about that, and I had suggested that she get the house cleansed. And we told her about how she could do that on her own if she wanted to take care of it herself. And she went home and she couldn't get to sleep, and she messaged me. She says, do you have anybody that could come and cleanse this house before this family moves in? Because I don't, you worry about a child being subjected to that. They're very, very vulnerable, and they're very, very sensitive at a young age. And so she actually had somebody come in and cleanse the house the next day and seal it up. How they seal it up is they cleanse it and get everything out, and they seal it so that nothing else can come back in. And it's not 100% foolproof, but it's pretty close. So the medium who did the cleansing really felt confident that they had cleaned the house out, and said, if anything happens that the family sees or feels anything that they're not happy about, just let me know, and she would go back. But apparently that whole area, which was called Valley View Circle, that whole area, the whole neighborhood is kind of like very jovial. Like everyone's very friendly. It's a family-oriented neighborhood, but the houses have a lot of activity in that area. And apparently it's because it was a former Indian burial ground, supposedly, before Ingersoll Rand bought it way back in the day and started building houses on it. So, I mean, I don't know if they relocated the bodies. A lot of the times you find that they don't. You find that a lot of tombstones get relocated, but not the bodies. And I've been finding that out with a lot of investigations too, just in general, like in the 1800s, people who were buried in cemeteries, they'll move the tombstones, but they won't move the bodies. I wouldn't want to have a house on top of something like that. It would remind me too much of Poltergeist. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Poltergeist coming to life, So, but this Friday, we're doing an investigation in a church, which is a church turned residence. A woman bought the church, and she's living in the back end of it, and her goal is to make the front end of it a wellness center, but she's had it for a couple of years now, and she's just been renovating it. And so she's had some activities, and she'd been trying to get in touch with me, and she sent a message, finally got my email and sent a message. And she sent me this video of this huge orb. I mean, I've never seen one so vivid on camera before. I was like, yes, when can we get in? So we're going to go there this Friday and see what we can come up with. See if I can find out who it is in there. She says it's not anything threatening. I mean, obviously, when something isn't good, you just have a feeling about it. So she just feels like she's sharing the house with somebody, and she just doesn't know who they are. Does anybody have any questions for me? No? Well, on October 30th, which is All Hallows Eve, last year, we had the book release for Sussex County Hauntings, Book 1, and we had it in Sussex at Spectrum Books. And right after, I did a haunting ghost tour of Sussex. And we did it in the rain last year. There was 30 people, but it was great. It was fun. So I had so many people asking, are you going to do it this year? And as it turned out, Spectrum Books is still closed. He's doing renovations in his building. But I was able to collaborate with Get Juiced. It's like a diner kind of with organic food, and the Sussex Art Factory. They're like right next to one another. So we're going to have like a harvest festival where the kids can come and people can come in costume, and there'll be a costume contest, and we're going to have a bonfire, and we're going to roast marshmallows, and we'll tell ghost stories. And anyone who wants a book or a book signing, we're going to do that too. And that's going to be from 6 to 8. There's going to be a band there. It's in the town of Sussex. And around 8:30, I'm going to do the tour again of Sussex. So if anybody would like to come, show up. You can come from 6 to 8, or you can show up at 8:30 to go on the tour. I actually had owned a building, owned a store, I should say, not the building. I owned a store that I rented in a building on Main Street over there, which was haunted. And I will share that story with everybody too on the tour. But now I have actually more stories that I've added, because since that, that first tour, people come out of the woodwork and go, I have a story about this, then I have a story about that. So I have more to add to the actual tour from last year. So that's kind of cool.
Can people get information about that on your website, or where?
Absolutely. You know, if you go to, let's see, where is it? My Instagram is author Eleanor Wagner. So if you follow me on Instagram, I am constantly updating all of the events. 3 days a week, I'm putting in all the new stuff that's going on. Like Thursday, October 29th, I'm going to be a guest on psychic medium Lisa Morrison's WTBQ radio show, which is 93.5 FM out of Warwick, and that's at 12 noon. She takes people's calls, and if you have a question for her, as a medium, she'll give you, and as psychic, she'll give you the answer. And she's invited me to be a guest on that show on October 29th. So you can call in and you can get your psychic question answered, and maybe get a free book, because I'm going to bring a couple of books with me as like a drawing on the radio. And then I just told you about the October Harvest Festival. And then Marianne Taylor and I will be on Travel Channel's Paranormal Caught on Camera on Sunday, November 8th. So I would love for you to watch the show. We're going to be featuring one of the investigations that we've been on. I can't tell which one it was, but because I'm not allowed to release that information. And it was supposed to be on like October 17th, and now they moved it back. But if there's any updates, I always update it on my Instagram. So that's author Eleanor Wagner Instagram for regular updates. And then I have the Facebook page too, Eleanor Wagner Author Facebook, that I do the same. So whichever is easiest for you. And then there's the blog that I just put on earlier on the chat, that you can go to as well. But that's less frequently updated as the Instagram. The Instagram gets every other day, it gets updated. The most haunted place in Sussex County, I have to say, is definitely just Ogdensburg in general, the town of Ogdensburg, because of the mineral content in the area. It's every psychic or medium that I've known has said that it's bustling. I mean, they'll go in and they will just see them walking all over the place from all walks of life. So you'll have somebody from like the 1800s walking with Native Americans, and they just go about their business in town. So I have to say that Ogdensburg is definitely the most haunted place in Sussex County. And the Sussex, if you're talking about, somebody said, is the Sussex Hotel haunted? If you're talking about the Sussex Inn, yes, it is. And I knew that it was, but nobody was telling me the stories. And I was like asking, please, I want you to tell me about it. This building has to be haunted. You know what I mean? And then when I was doing a book sighting at Taco the Town, it just so happened that somebody had bought the book, and they walked down to the Sussex Inn to go and have a drink. And while they were there, they were like, "Where'd you get that book?" And they said, "Oh, the author's up at Talk of the Town." So in rolls like the bartender with a couple of guys to get a copy of the book, and he goes, "The Sussex Inn is haunted." And I'm going, "Well, you got to tell me about it." So I got like 1 or 2 stories about the Sussex Inn so far. I'm still waiting to get an interview with him for him to elaborate on what he was telling me. But yes, the Sussex Inn is definitely haunted. That whole Main Street is. In fact, the antique shops that are in those buildings on Main Street, they regularly sage their houses, sage their buildings because they're haunted, and they're also bringing in old items. So when you bring in old items, they can have attachments on them. And so in order to avoid that, they sage the building. I don't know if you know what sage is, but it's like the sage that we cook, but they have them in like bunches, and you just light it and you walk around your house or your building and you pray over it. If you bring an old antique item into your house, you pray over that, you know, and ask for blessings and to keep anything out, and that's how it gets done. But yeah, that whole area, my shop was haunted, so I totally know about that. And the Gingerbread Castle in Hamburg is definitely haunted, for sure. That ended up being in book 2. It's a chapter in book 2. I never did get a chance to get in there, but now we've been in contact with the new owner because he's renovating it to try and bring it back to its original grandeur, which would be lovely to have it back to what it was. And we are like this close to getting in there, this close. So I'm really hoping that will happen because I've been dying to get in there for a really long time. And I've been called to locations. And at the time we would determine there was nothing there at that moment, because I don't like to tell somebody there's nothing here. You could go someplace and expect so much to happen and nothing happens at all. Or you'll go someplace and it'll happen. It just depends if they want to talk to you or if they're there at that moment. You know what I'm saying? So just because it may not happen when we're there doesn't mean that it's not real. For example, I want to say probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had this feeling, and I always trust my gut. I say it's never led me wrong. So I had this gut feeling. I was writing a chapter on the Rockport train wreck. And I said, I'm going to get the team together and see who wants to come with me to the site of the train wreck and see if we can come up with anything. And so we went. And I really didn't think anything was going to happen, but it did. I had 4 mediums with me that night. And just somebody who was, sensitive to a degree, but not mediumistically, and me. And we were at the train, the site of the train wreck, and we were at the crossing, and we're all on the tracks, and it's dark out, and all of a sudden, the crossing lights and the you know how it goes ding, 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 and the lights go on and off, went off. And we all jumped out of our pants going, "Get up, there's a train coming!" And then all of a sudden, it stopped as quickly as it started. I'm going, "Oh, wait a second. That's crazy." And I had just gotten finished saying, I wish they would give us a sign that they're here, because we had been up at the memorial and we were taking pictures and stuff because they have a memorial there in memory of all the people that died in the train wreck. And so then the lights went off and we were like, okay, that's a sign. You know, they're letting us know they're here. So we asked them to do it again, and they did. And it happened 4 more times while we were there. In fact, as we were leaving, we said, "Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us, and we really appreciate it." And they did it as in like a goodbye. They made the lights go on off in a ding, 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 like for 3 seconds, which was really, really cool. We got it on audio. The mediums had been coming up with names, and when they got home, they pulled up the passenger manifest for that wreck, and every single one of the names that they came up with was on that list, which I thought was crazy. And then there was, we had picked up on a little girl who had been traveling with her mom, and she could not find her mom. And we didn't have a name for her, but when I went on the passenger list, back in those days, they if they didn't have a name, they would just say a little girl of 9 years old traveling with her mom, you know? And that's exactly what I found. I found one little girl of that age traveling with her mother on the passenger manifest list, which was the little girl that we were talking about. So Mary Ann Taylor didn't make it that night, so Laurel Devine figured she was going to go back with her because they live not too far away from the area. And they went back like the following Saturday, and the same thing happened with the lights. They found out that it was one of the railroad workers, and he wasn't stuck there. He just liked being there because he wanted to make sure that everybody was safe. He didn't want to have any more accidents like the train wreck. And so they said, are you the one that's doing the lights? Did the lights to us the other night? And he said, yes. And she said, would you do it for us again? And he did. And he did it in twice because they were there for about an hour. And he did it the once when they asked him, and just before they left, he did it again for them and like goodbye. So that was really interesting. I said, and John Matthews was telling me, oh, I thought there was something wrong with the light. And I said to him, didn't you ever think that, no, there wasn't something wrong with the light, that somebody was making something happen with the light? He goes, I never really thought about that. So you know, you can have things happen and not even realize, you know, until it happens. It's just nuts. I've been trying to get into the Stanhope house, but we haven't been able to do that. I've gotten stories. It's a chapter in the book, but nothing for that. The Waterloo Village is definitely haunted. It's a chapter in the books. I am actually being a guest with one of the paranormal teams from Morris County has invited me and the Lady Ghostbuster team to go with them to Waterloo Village. I think it's next Sunday, and do an investigation there with them. And so we're going to bring the two teams together so we can collaborate with each other. And I want to get into those buildings because, you know, I've had people tell me stories about Waterloo Village, and it is already a chapter, but I like to try and follow up, because what I always end up doing was I add to the books like updates. This is the most recent story I have about this investigation that we've been on, and people like to hear about, oh, what else did you find out, kind of. Somebody's asking about previewing a few locations in Warren County that I'm running about. Well, I just said like the Rockport train wreck, and then Princess Doe is one of them, and Tilly Smith, the young girl who was murdered at Centenary College, Stanhope House. There are a couple of different residences. So I try and do like a healthy mix. Oh, and there's the Changewater murders in Changewater. That's a big story too that not too many people know about. But one of the original family members brought me to the cemetery and showed me the gravestones of the murdered victims, and then she brought me to the location where the so-called murderers were buried. And that's going to be a chapter in the book for Warren County. And there's what else? Oh, there's the original, the Charlie Browns. It was Charlie Browns. That's another building. Sometimes I get them all confused and they all mix in with each other. But Charlie Browns is another one that is going on in Warren County. And I think that's, I think have we been to Stillwater? I'm trying to remember. I know we're trying to get into the Stillwater firehouse, and because it's haunted. And we were supposed to get in there, but then COVID hit. I had all of these investigations planned, places I was trying to get into, and they were scheduled, and then COVID hit. And so everything got canceled. Now things started to pick up again slowly. And like I said, now I have a calendar full of events, you know, between now through December. So I'm hoping that those other ones that we meant to get into, we'll be able to get into now. Keep your fingers crossed. In Passaic County, okay, I'm trying to remember where Passaic County is. Is that like West Milford? Does anybody know West Milford, Ringwood, that area? Is that, okay. There's a haunted preschool, and I can't give the name of the preschool out because the woman's a teacher there, but that's going to be a story. Clinton Road is one of them. Trying to think of what else. What else was in Passaic County that I can... Those are the only two that I can think of off the top of my head right now. Oh, and the Ringwood Manor. Ringwood Manor is another one. And in Warren County, there's the Shippen Manor. Does anyone know that one? That's going to be another one that just came to my mind about Warren County. Morris County, there is actually a haunted church. Sure, a haunted church, the priest's house, pastor's house, I'm sorry, and the cemetery. That's going to be in Morris County. I'm trying to think of what else. See, I get all these stories that people tell me. Oh, in Warwick, the sports complex, we were supposed to get in there, but COVID prevented it. So now that's going to be in the new year. We're going to go into the sports complex in Warwick, which is Orange County. It was originally a boys' house or an orphanage of some sort, something along those lines, and then it was a correctional facility. So that ought to be very interesting. And then Silvio's, which used to be the Italian villa in Warwick, we're going to get into that one too. But that's well known to be haunted. I mean, they've had them on a couple of different paranormal programs have already been to that building, but I still like to go in and do my own investigation if I can. It's my hobby, you know. Yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody else have any questions?
Have you ever been to Cape May?
Oh my gosh, Cape May is my favorite place in New Jersey. That's actually what inspired me to write about Sussex County, because every time I go to Cape May, I've got to go on a tour and I buy the latest book on the hauntings in Cape May. I just love it. It's my favorite place in New Jersey to go. So when I was writing my second paranormal supernatural love story, I was, into it like 3 chapters, and then I kind of hit a brick wall. I knew the beginning, middle, and end, but I was like, hit a brick wall. And I was at a writer's group and we were tossing ideas around and we were talking ghost stories, and I'm going, oh my gosh, Sussex County's got to be haunted, and that's what got it started, because I knew I had an experience in the store that I owned in Main Street in Sussex. And I said, if I had experience, I know other people did too. So I put it out on social media. Does anybody have stories they want to share? And before I knew it, like I said, I had people coming out of the woodwork with Sussex and Warren and Morris and Orange. And so I wasn't going to not take those stories. So I put them all in files. And as I get stories enough to put in a book, I do it. Oh, Pike County is another one. Milford, Pennsylvania is steaming hot. Oh, it's crazy. So that's going to be the one, because I have so many stories for that one. That's going to be, like I said, I have Warren County coming out next, and then Sussex 3. Then it's going to be Pike County, because I have just so many things about Pike County. But I love the town of Milford too. It reminds me so much of Cape May too, because just that old world feeling, and all the quaint little shops and stuff like that. But yes, I've been to Cape May. I'm pretty sure the house I live in is haunted. My bed shakes like there's a tremor, and my daughter has felt someone watching her. We did a cleanse a few months ago, and we haven't noticed anything, but I'm sure there's still someone sharing our space. Very cool. Well, I would love to talk to you, and if you'd like to have me come in, I would love to do that. Gray Towers sounds familiar. It looks like Barb. Where is Gray Towers?
It's in Milford.
In Milford. Is that a former hospital?
No, it's the Pinchot estate. Remember
Oh,
the Pinchot?
okay. I've heard about it. I heard about it on the Milford tour. Me and the team went in and we did an investigation of the Columns Museum that is in Milford. Are you familiar with it, Barb?
That one I don't know.
Okay. When they took us on, we went on the Milford tour, they're probably going to have, I don't know with this COVID thing, but they usually start soon. They have the tour every weekend, and they took us around in the Pinchot one, the name came up at one point. So no, I've not done it, but I'm going to try to get in to some of those places over there. There's the old courthouse that's over there, but the Columns is a huge mansion on that main strip, going into Mount Morris, and it's an actual museum now, and beautiful, but it's 4 stories, and we went in with the team. We had the whole building to ourselves, and we had some really crazy things happen. So yeah, so I definitely want to go into more spots in Milford. Belle Reeve Senior Living is said to be haunted. Now you say Belle Reeve. Is Belle Reeve a place in the area, or is that just the name? Jennifer. Did I lose you, Jennifer? Belle Reeves is in Milford, Pennsylvania. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm going to have to check that out. put that on my list of places to check out. um, what else? Oh, there's a hotel in Milford. I'm trying to remember the name, but we did the Readers and Writers Authors Festival last year, and the guest speaker was signing books in this hotel. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but I remember walking into the hotel to have him sign my book. And I remember getting a foofy feeling, but I told you about that. I get a foofy feeling when I know something's around. And when I took a picture of him, I could see an orb. So there was definitely something there with us when we were taking pictures with. Alan Alda, that was the actor that was there, that was the guest speaker. And somebody said something about Whistling Swan. I don't know where Whistling Swan is. I've never heard of it. But I'd love to find out about it. And Newton, yeah, Newton's Haunted. I have a couple of great stories about Newton in book 1. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the underground tunnels, but there's a chapter on the underground tunnels in book 1 as well. And they extend all over the surrounding counties. In fact, back in the day, old timers, when they were children, would get in the tunnel on one side of town and walk to the other end of town because it was cooler during hot days to go through the tunnels. And they just knew their way around them. And they would use them, the stores on Spring Street, all of those old buildings. In fact, a lot of the old houses have access to those tunnels from their buildings. And the firehouse is one of them. In fact, one of the firemen had taken a newbie and said, "You want to go see the tunnels?" And they brought him down there to show him the tunnels. So they still are accessible from some areas. In fact, the New Jersey Herald, when they were building the building there, they unearthed one of the tunnels and they had to seal it up. So I think from some certain angle, I'm not exactly sure where in the parking lot, but when you stand there, you can see the actual silver plate up on the rocks of where the entrance was. And there are 3 children in the Newton Cemetery. I think it's the old portion of it. There was an entrance to the tunnels there. And back in the day, 3 children went in and they never came out. So a family lost their 3 children in the tunnels, and they sealed that hole up and they put a memorial on it with the 3 children's names on that entrance to the tunnels. So yeah, Newton is really hopping with ghosts. The Dimmock Inn in Milford, Pennsylvania is haunted, yes, but they don't like really to talk about it, and they're not interested in having anybody come in there. Bell's Mansion is definitely haunted. That is definitely, is Bell's Mansion in Warren County? Because I know I have a chapter on it, and I'm pretty sure it's either in one of the books or it's going to be out in the Warren County. That's why I said I get them confused. But Whistling Swan I've never heard of, and I'd love to. All right, it's in Main Street in Stanhope, so I'm going to have to find out about that. Whistling Swan. I'm going to have to find out. Around the corner from Sussex, around the corner from the Stanhope house. Kim, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, the Whistling Swan is on Main Street in Stanhope, which is right around the corner from the Stanhope house, which is right around, Bell's Mansion is right kind of close to the Stanhope house.
Ah, okay.
They're all in the same, and then
yeah, you see how you get all of this stuff, like
my daughter's friend lives on that, not a couple houses down from the Whistling Swan, and they have so much activity in their house.
Wow.
Yeah, not all good either.
No, huh?
No. No, but yeah, so
well,
you can hit 3 at one time.
Yeah, well, the people who have like in their residences, or if you have friends that if they are interested in having the team come, there's no charge. They could just ask us come in, we'll come in. So
Okay.
you could just give them my information and let them know to reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to bring us over there and we'll check it out.
Okay.
But I got it as soon as we're done here. I'm going to write down these names because I'm going to forget them. I can get into the chat, right, Julie, and see those names. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
If you can't get in there, just send me a message and I'll be able to, since we recorded it, all the chats will be recorded as well. So
Okay.
I just have to get I can also maybe copy and paste.
Yeah, I actually just
Maybe
took a
not.
picture. I just,
Oh,
power
okay.
modern technology, right? I'm going to take a picture. Has any ghost, somebody had asked earlier on, which I just saw now, has any ghost ever followed you home? And I'm sure they must have. I'm sure, because when I started doing these investigations in 2019, I have sleep paralysis a lot after all these investigations. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it's like when you're sleeping and it feels like something's taken over you, and it's like got control of your whole body, and you can't move, you can't
Yeah, I
speak.
have it. I have it.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Terrible.
And yeah, it's scary. And it's
Yep.
happened to me when I've gone away on haunting weekends, like in haunting places. But this one particular time, my daughter says to me, Mom, I had this thing happen to me. And she describes sleep paralysis. And it freaked me out that it was happening to my kid. So I think they got mad, whatever it was, got mad that she told me, because that night I had endured a sleepless night of sleep paralysis. And the last episode, I could actually visually see a pillow being put over my head and smothering me. So that freaked me out. So the next day I got out and I went and I bought sage, and my friend told me about salting the house. So I came home and I saged the whole house, and I went outside with the salt around the entire perimeter of my house, and then nothing happened. So now I have to be, I'm more careful, because it's, everybody says you really got to be very careful. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So now I have protective rocks, stones, and I have a protection oil that I put on me before I go out. And I sage my house regularly now, because I'm doing it every weekend practically. And my husband is one of those believer, non-believers, and you're like, yeah, that stuff, I don't believe in it, but don't bring anything home. So I got to make sure I don't bring anything home.
I'm going to cancel your spotlight now, and
Okay.
then if anybody else has any, we'll just let unmute for any final questions that anyone might have. I think we answered all the questions in the chat, but if we missed your question, shout out again. And thank you so much for coming
You're
tonight.
welcome.
It was very interesting.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So, I mean, there are tons of stories I can tell you, but we don't have all night. So.
Does anybody have any final questions?
As I mentioned, maybe, like I said, that if they have anything going on their house that they would really like to talk to me about, or a friend or whatever, just reach out to me and we can make arrangements for us to come in and figure it out.
And then again, in the chat, we put your website, and also we do at the library, we do have a copy of all 3 of your books. So if anybody wants to check that out, they can get a copy from the library.
Thank you. And if you guys read them, if you could review them, that would be great. More specifically, the Dream a Little Dream, if you do read it, I just got it back from my publisher. It's my rights back to me. So if you're going to read it and review it, just go to my website to click on the Amazon link. Otherwise, you'll get to the publisher's link, and it's mine now. So I could always use those reviews.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It was great fun.
Thank you.
It was nice to see you all.
Yeah,
Happy lunching and happy
it was fun.
Halloween.
Thank you.
Have a good night.